My name is Gail Smith, and I'm a visual artist and an adjunct undergrad lecturer at SMU. I joined the military when I was very young because there was something inside me calling me to do it. And I can say that I probably didn't even really know what I was getting into. I was in the active Army for almost 9 years. I flew Hueys and Blackhawks. I was stationed in Korea, Germany, Fort Carson, and I was a dust-off pilot, which is air ambulance helicopters. I left the Army in 2000. I went into the Coast Guard, and then I flew for them for 12 years. I think that while you're living in this sort of environment and doing these things, you don't really realize how much stress you're actually handling. Or maybe not handling. There's a part of my personality that sort of got left behind in the military because there's really not a lot of room for creative expression at times, as you might imagine. As I retired from the military in 2014, with over 21 years of active duty, I decided, wow, I need to revisit this part of my personality. I actually started to take painting and drawing seriously at the end of my time in the Army, when I was in Germany. I bought paints and I made a painting for my wife, which was terrible. It's a terrible painting, but she loves it, and I like it too. I knew for sure that I was going to use my GI Bill for an art degree, and SMU was high up on the list. So we ended up in Dallas, and I started 2 degrees in Dallas while I was here. One was the creative computing, and the other was a Bachelor of Fine Arts. Coming here, painting or making other creations, my time in the studio and my paintings allows me to reflect on my experiences and deal with some of those old, maybe buried emotions or things that have happened to me that I just hadn't taken the time to reflect on previously. The piece of art entitled Bali High is an absolute example of that. I started making a body of work when I was finishing my degree that I wanted to be honest paintings. I wanted them to be an outpouring of something from within me. The paintings are a reflection of experiences I had. Some over the course of years, some over the course of a week or a day, or a tour of duty, for example. And then the one that we're discussing now, Bali High, is just the course of one day, an experience I had one day that at the moment didn't really cause too many alarms in my head, but looking back, it actually had an effect on me for my entire Coast Guard career. The size of that painting was to match the level of visceral experience I had that day, and the colors as well. The painting was therapeutic for me. That's the value of being an artist for me. If I never sell a piece of art, I'm still a success as an artist because I've been able to give that gift to myself. Of course, I would like to make sales of my art, but my main reason for doing this is sort of a self-therapy, if you will. I teach coding to art students so they can make art with code. And that's part of what I do as well, is make art with code.
Give us a sense what coding means.
Yeah, so using computer code in the creation of art is called generative design or generative art. And generally, it's a form of systems art, whereas I create the system that's creating the art. I create the rules that the computer uses to make these images or 3D models or whatever it is that you're creating.
Tell me, how do you come up with this? Because these are tremendous on their own.
The code I wrote was basically, if you envision this as 64 tiles, 8 by 8. I just had the computer generate these, not random, but algorithm-based tiles that were meant to connect together in a specific way. I created many of these, and then I chose the one that I decided I wanted to turn into the project. Through that process, I took it to the CNC machine, and then I decided, let's ink this up and let's make this piece right here. This is actually the ghost print. There's another one that's darker.
Now, the interesting thing is, this piece could actually be
Yes.
this as well.
Depending on how the light hits it, you can see it created an embossing. That was what I felt at the moment was a stronger piece than the inked piece. So I decided to start to make a body of work of paper embossings.
Talk a little bit about this body of work over here.
I kind of reserve this corner for ideas that I'm currently playing with. Right now I'm sort of exploring this geometric abstraction. In the process of these geometric abstractions, I painted this, which I find just interesting to look at. And then I started to get, I guess a good way to explain it is sort of obsessed with this shape right here. And this is actually the same thing, but it's going to be three-dimensional. If you stand and see this from a certain angle, then you can see how it relates to this.
Right.
And this is something else that's, the ideas are spawning other ideas. And that's sort of my process. I just kind of try to relax and let things happen and then follow the ideas that pop up. Some of them pan out to be something nice and some of them go to a dead end.
And then lastly, that piece up there.
Yes.
Such an amazing piece of work.
Thank you. Yeah, I made that based on a photograph that I took while I was in the Coast Guard and decided to turn that into a paper collage. That photograph took on great significance to me later in my career, many years after I had taken it. Some close friends of mine crashed that exact helicopter in Hawaii after I left, which was a very difficult experience for me and obviously for many other people. Making that as part of what we were discussing about, art being therapeutic for me. That piece was in a show. I'm glad it didn't sell because I don't want to let it go.
You know what, I think that has more meaning than it should really sell for. So thank you very much, Dave. It's been an absolute pleasure. Your story's wonderful.
Thank you so much.
I couldn't thank you more because it just makes me so happy.
Well, I really appreciate your time and your questions. Thank you.
My pleasure.